What if a modern airplane, one of the safest machines ever built, simply vanished? Not crashed, not exploded, not hijacked into some secret base, just disappeared, quietly, without a single trace of fire or smoke. Imagine a sky so calm, a night so ordinary, that passengers lean back into their seats, fully believing they will wake up safely at their destination. Imagine a pilot whispering, "Good night," in the soft, practiced voice of a man who has said it 1,000 times. And imagine that those two words would be the last sound the world ever heard from Flight MH370.
In every corner of history, there are stories no one was meant to find. Moments erased, twisted, or buried so deep that only fragments remain. But every mystery leaves a footprint. Every disappearance leaves a shadow. Every unsolved case leaves a file. Here, we open those files. We follow the trails others abandoned. We reconstruct final moments no one witnessed. We look into the places where logic breaks and the truth hides in the dark. Because behind every legend, behind every scream in the night, behind every person who vanished without a trace, there is always something unseen. Welcome to the Unseen File, where the lost speak and the shadows have a story.
On March 8, 2014, at Kuala Lumpur International Airport, the world was quiet. The kind of quiet airports get in the deep hours of the night. Cleaning staff polishing floors, security guards sipping coffee, travelers yawning as they wait at departure gates. Nothing, absolutely nothing, suggested that within hours, the world would be pulled into one of the greatest mysteries in modern history. Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370, a Boeing 777-200ER, was scheduled for a routine red-eye flight to Beijing, a simple 6-hour journey. On board were 239 people, husbands returning home, children going back to school, business travelers thinking about the meetings waiting for them, artists, honeymooners, families, students, people with futures that should have continued beyond sunrise. The crew, 12 professionals, moved with practiced calm. They had done this countless times. They were ready. In the cockpit sat Captain Zahari Ahad Shah, 53 years old, soft-spoken, 18,000 flight hours under his belt, the type of man passengers trusted without even knowing his name. He didn't rush, he didn't panic. He performed every pre-flight checklist with the discipline of someone who takes the skies seriously. Next to him sat First Officer Farik Hamid, 27, on the final training flight before earning full certification. Young but skilled, polite, eager, focused. He was finally living his dream. The clock struck 12:42 a.m. The plane pushed back from the gate. Engines hummed to life. Taxi lights flickered along the runway. And then, with a long, smooth acceleration, MH370 lifted into the sky. For the first 15 minutes, everything was perfect. The night air was calm, clear, peaceful. The stars above the South China Sea looked like tiny diamonds scattered across darkness. Passengers settled in, some already asleep, some reading, some whispering quietly to seatmates. Nothing felt unusual. At 1:19 a.m., as the plane approached the boundary between Malaysian and Vietnamese airspace, the cockpit radioed its final message. "Good night, Malaysian 370. A simple farewell. Routine. Normal. The kind of goodbye that happens thousands of times a day. Then, 2 minutes later, Flight MH370 disappeared from civilian radar. Not gradually, not with warning, just gone, like someone had erased it from the screen with a fingertip. Air traffic controllers attempted to call the plane. Nothing. They tried again. Silence. They hoped it was a technical issue, maybe a frequency mix-up. Maybe the pilots were busy. But the silence continued. Then came the discovery nobody expected. Malaysian military radar, separate from civilian radar, showed something shocking. MH370 had made a sudden, deliberate turn back toward Malaysia. Not drifting, not swaying, a sharp, well-controlled turn that required human decision and human hands. The plane flew back over the Malay Peninsula, climbed slightly, changed direction again, and headed across the Strait of Malacca. It was flying in the complete opposite direction of Beijing. At 2:22 a.m., military radar recorded the last known position. Then, the Boeing 777 vanished again, this time for good. Meanwhile, in Beijing, families waited at the airport. They stood at the arrival gate under bright fluorescent lights, watching the digital board that displayed flight statuses. At first, it showed delayed. People sighed with mild annoyance. Flights get delayed all the time. Minutes passed, then hours. The board changed from delayed to delayed again. Nothing else. No explanation, no announcements. Just a void of information thicker than any fog. And then, after agonizing silence, one word appeared. Canceled. Gasps, shouts, people crying, people begging officials for answers, parents clutching each other as if their bodies could hold back the truth. The first waves of panic rippled through the air like electric shock. Back in Malaysia, chaos was building. The search began in the South China Sea, the logical path, but that search turned up nothing. No oil slicks, no floating debris, nothing. Then Malaysia revealed that the plane had flown west. The world collectively froze. This wasn't just a search. It became the largest air-sea search in history. 26 nations joined: the United States, Australia, China, India, Vietnam, Japan, France. Warships cut through unforgiving waves. Satellites shifted positions in orbit. Underwater drones were deployed. Planes combed thousands of square kilometers. Still nothing. The Indian Ocean is not a gentle place. It is wild, enormous, and brutally deep. A place where storms form without witness. A place where the ocean floor is rugged and tall as mountain ranges. If a plane fell here, it might sink into trenches so deep they could swallow skyscrapers whole. Investigators scrambled for clues. All communication equipment had been turned off manually. Radio, transponder, data systems, one by one. Not all at once like in a power failure. These switches required deliberate action. So what happened next? Inmarsat satellite data revealed handshakes, automated signals sent from the aircraft to a satellite high above the Indian Ocean. They didn't reveal the plane's location, but they did reveal its direction. MH370 continued flying for nearly 7 hours after last contact. 7 hours. Imagine that. A silent aircraft, no radio calls, no distress messages, simply gliding across the sky like a ghost, far from populated areas, far from radar coverage, alone in the night. The data formed arcs, curved paths representing where the plane could have been at each hourly ping. All arcs pointed to one heartbreaking conclusion. The plane had turned south toward one of the most remote stretches of ocean on Earth. The place came to be known as the Seventh Arc, a region where the water is miles deep, where storms rage without witnesses, where sunlight barely touches the waves. For months, the world searched. For months, nothing appeared. Then, in July 2015, more than a year after the disappearance, a man walking along a beach on Reunion Island spotted a piece of debris, a barnacle-covered wing flaperon. Experts confirmed it was from a Boeing 777 and later confirmed it was from MH370. It had traveled thousands of kilometers on ocean currents. More debris followed over the next years. A part of the engine cowling, a section of the cabin interior, fragments of the wings, pieces of the fuselage, even a suitcase panel washed ashore on the beaches of Mozambique, Tanzania, Madagascar, Mauritius. There was no doubt. MH370 had crashed in the Indian Ocean, but the main wreckage, the truth, remained hidden beneath crushing pressure and endless darkness. Theories began swirling. Some believed it was a catastrophic accident, a fire, an electrical failure, sudden decompression. But accidents do not turn aircraft around, navigate coastlines, disable communication systems, and fly straight for hours. Others believed it was a deliberate act, a pilot suicide, possibly by Captain Zahari Ahmad. Supporters pointed to the deliberate turns, his flight simulator routes, the quiet flight south, the lack of distress calls. They argued he depressurized the cabin, rendering passengers unconscious, and flew alone until fuel ran out. But his family, friends, and colleagues fiercely rejected this theory. They described him as gentle, stable, dedicated. They insisted he would never harm anyone. To them, this theory wasn't just wrong, it was cruel. Another theory suspected hijackers, but no one claimed responsibility. No messages, no ransom, and no evidence of struggle on board. Some theorized that the crew became incapacitated, leaving the plane to fly on autopilot until it ran out of fuel. But the deliberate early maneuvers contradicted this.
A darker theory suggested government involvement, that too much information was withheld, that radar data from India, the US military, or other nations was never released, that political tensions influenced what was said and what wasn't. Then there was the theory of a mistaken military shoot-down. Perhaps the plane strayed into restricted airspace. Perhaps a missile hit it, and nations hid the truth to avoid conflict. But this would require a massive international cover-up. Some believed the plane landed somewhere intentionally, maybe in Kazakhstan, maybe in the Maldives, and was dismantled. But the debris tells a different story. And then the most extraordinary theories emerged. Wormholes, invisible energy weapons, extraterrestrial encounters. People turn to the unimaginable because the real world sometimes offers no answers. Based on all evidence, investigators reconstructed a likely timeline. At 1:21 a.m., the transponder went silent. Shortly after, the plane turned sharply left. It crossed Malaysia, flew over Penang Island, then out over the Strait of Malacca. A final radar contact occurred at 2:22 a.m. After that, the plane flew south for hours. At 8:19 a.m., the satellite recorded a final partial handshake. Experts believe this occurred when the engines flamed out due to fuel exhaustion. When fuel ran out, autopilot disengaged. The plane entered a steep, uncontrolled descent, and then it struck the Indian Ocean with immense force. The people on board likely never felt the impact. They were unconscious long before. The human cost is what makes this mystery so heartbreaking. On that plane were mothers, fathers, children, newlyweds, grandparents, people with dreams, plans, birthdays waiting ahead, a group of artists, a choir group, students returning to school, engineers, teachers, 239 lives that never returned. Their families waited for days, then weeks, then years. They sat in hotel conference rooms, begging for answers. They watched press conferences filled with uncertainty and contradictions. They clung to rumors, sightings, theories, anything that offered a sliver of hope. One father said, "I don't need someone to blame. I don't need theories. I just need to know where my daughter is." That is the tragedy of MH370. Not just the loss, but the not knowing. The Indian Ocean swallowed the truth, crushed it under pressures so great they could collapse steel, hid it beneath waters darker than night. But even now, more than a decade later, hope has not died. New technology has emerged, new scanning methods, Private companies have proposed renewed searches. Families continue to fight for answers. Investigators continue to analyze data. The world has not forgotten. Flight MH370 is not just an aviation mystery. It is a story of human fragility, of uncertainty, of grief stretching across continents. It is a reminder that even in an age of satellites, GPS, and real-time tracking, a massive Boeing 777 can vanish without a trace. It exposes the limits of our systems and the fragility of our confidence in technology. It is a story that forces us to question what we know and what we think we know. And somewhere out there, in the cold, silent depths of the Indian Ocean, the truth is still waiting. Waiting to be found. Waiting to give families peace. Waiting to tell the world what truly happened that night. If this story moved you, if it kept you listening, if it made you wonder how an entire airplane can disappear in an age of global communication, then share this story, follow for more investigations, and keep the search alive. Not because the mystery is fascinating, but because the 239 people aboard MH370 deserve to be found, remembered, and honored. The sky took them, the sea hid them, but the world will not stop searching for the truth.